The night sky has always been humanity's first and greatest mystery. Across every continent and for thousands of years, our ancestors did not just see random lights above them. They saw the faces of gods, the hands of a cosmic clock, and the very blueprint for their existence. This journey uncovers 35 ancient civilizations whose worlds were built upon a foundation of stars. You will discover how these cultures transformed the sun, moon, and planets into the core of their identity, power, and survival. We will travel from the sun-baked pyramids of Egypt to the hidden Maya observatories in the jungle, unraveling secrets etched in stone and story. How could a star predict the flooding of a mighty river? Why did an empire believe the sun required human blood to rise each morning? By the end, you will see the cosmos through the eyes of 35 lost worlds, understanding the universal human impulse that connected them all. What part of this celestial story resonates most deeply with you? The starry body of the goddess Nut stretched from horizon to horizon, a celestial mother swallowing the sun each evening to give birth to it again at dawn. For the people of ancient Egypt, the sky was not an empty void but a living, divine entity. Their entire understanding of life, death, and the cosmos was written in the movements of the heavens. The sun god Ra's daily voyage was the ultimate drama. He sailed his golden bark across the sky, bringing light and life to the world. But his journey through the underworld each night was a perilous battle against the serpent of chaos, Apep. Every sunrise was not just a given, it was a hard-won victory, a rebirth that mirrored the human soul's own hoped-for journey through the afterlife. This celestial rhythm was the very heartbeat of their civilization, dictating everything from the planting of crops to the construction of their most enduring monuments. They built with the sky as their blueprint. The great pyramids at Giza were not just tombs, they were colossal stairways to the stars, their sides perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions. Deep within their burial chambers, narrow shafts pointed directly to the circumpolar stars, those eternal lights that never set. The Egyptians called them the imperishable ones, and they believed their pharaohs, the sons of Ra, would ascend to join that undying cosmic court for eternity. How did they achieve such perfect alignment? Their priesthood were the world's first master astronomers, meticulously observing the heavens. They developed a calendar based on the rising of the star Sirius, which appeared just before the sun at the dawn of the Nile's annual flood. This single celestial event, the heliacal rising of Sirius, was their alarm clock for the entire year, signaling the life-giving inundation that would fertilize their fields and sustain their empire. In Egypt, the sky was not just something to look at. It was a living god, a clock, a map, and a promise of eternal life, all woven into one magnificent tapestry. While Egypt saw a celestial mother, Mesopotamia's sky was a divine bureaucracy. In the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians looked upward and saw not just gods, but a celestial government ruling over human affairs. At the very top of this cosmic hierarchy sat Anu, the god of the heavens, the supreme authority from whom all other divine power flowed. His domain was the firmament itself, a vast and ordered kingdom of stars. But the most captivating figure in their sky was often the planet Venus, which they worshipped as the goddess Ishtar. She was a being of terrifying duality, a morning star heralding love and war, life and destruction. Her appearances and disappearances were dramatic events, carefully recorded and interpreted as messages from the gods. This was not mere stargazing, it was statecraft. The Mesopotamians believed the gods wrote their will directly in the movements of the planets and stars. A lunar eclipse could be a dire warning, a comet a prophecy of a king's fall. To read these signs, they developed astronomy into a precise science. Their priests, acting as the first royal advisors, meticulously tracked the heavens from the tops of their towering ziggurats. These massive stepped temples were not just places of worship, they were the world's first observatories, man-made mountains reaching for the divine. It was from these heights that they learned to predict lunar eclipses with remarkable accuracy, seeing the recurring patterns in the cosmic dance. This profound need to understand the divine schedule led them to create one of humanity's first lunisolar calendars, perfectly blending the cycles of the moon with the solar year to organize their society's religious festivals and agricultural cycles. Their greatest legacy, however, might be their map of the sky. They divided the path of the sun into 12 sections, each one assigned a constellation. This was the birth of the zodiac, a concept so powerful it would echo through millennia. Every decision, from when to plant crops to whether to go to war, was checked against this celestial script. The sky was the ultimate kingmaker, and its approval was everything. Far from the orderly celestial bureaucracy of Mesopotamia, the Maya saw the cosmos as a great, breathing, and often dangerous drama. Their world was layered, a sacred geography of heavens, earth, and underworld, all connected by the great world tree, which they saw mirrored in the Milky Way's luminous band arching across the night. This was not a distant government, but an intimate, living storybook written in starlight, and their survival depended on reading its pages correctly. At the heart of this drama were the sun and moon, personified as the powerful, sometimes fearsome couple Kinish-Ahau and Ix-Chel. Kinish-Ahau, the sun god, was more than just a bringer of light. He was a fierce lord whose gaze could scorch the earth, often depicted as a jaguar, the jungle's most powerful predator. By day, he brought life and warmth, but his journey through the underworld each night was a perilous trial. His consort, Ix-Chel, the moon goddess, was a figure of profound duality. She was the patron of weaving, medicine, and childbirth, her gentle light a comfort. Yet she could also manifest as a wrathful old woman, pouring floods from a jar or presiding over destruction. This celestial relationship of the fierce sun and the multifaceted moon reflected the Mayas' understanding of a universe governed by cycles of creation and destruction. To navigate this volatile cosmos, they became masters of time itself. Their long-count calendar was a breathtakingly precise machine built on astronomical cycles, capable of tracking vast epochs over thousands of years. It was not a simple tally of days, but a complex interweaving of multiple calendar rounds, synchronized with the movements of the heavens. Their obsession with precision was most evident in their tracking of Venus. They calculated its synodic period, the time it takes to return to the same point in the sky, to an accuracy of 1 day in 500 years. Why such devotion to the morning star? For the Maya, Venus was not a benevolent goddess of love, but a harbinger of war. Its first appearance after a period of invisibility was seen as a baleful omen, a signal that the gods were stirring for conflict. Kings would often plan their military campaigns to coincide with these Venusian cycles, believing they were riding a celestial wave of power. This deep cosmic knowledge was etched into the very stones of their cities. At Chichen Itza, the strange spiral structure known as El Caracol, or the snail, stands as a testament to their astronomical genius. Its narrow windows and alignments are not randomly placed. They are precisely calibrated sightlines targeting the extreme positions of Venus on the horizon and the solstices of the sun. From this tower, priest astronomers watched the gods move, decoding their messages for the ruler below. And those rulers, the Maya kings, were the living embodiment of this celestial connection. They claimed direct descent from the gods themselves, often from the maize god, whose story of death and rebirth was written in the stars. Through elaborate public rituals and bloodletting ceremonies, they would enter a trance state, piercing their own bodies to commune with their ancestors in the cosmic realm. In that sacred moment, the boundary between heaven and earth dissolved. The king was not just a man, he was the world tree made flesh, the axis around which the entire universe turned, his power flowing directly from the storybook of the night sky. High in the thin air of the Andes, the Inca Empire was literally built by the sun. Their entire civilization was founded on a single, radiant claim that their emperor, the Sopa Inca, was the direct living descendant of Inca, the sun god himself. This was not a distant myth but a political and spiritual reality that shaped every facet of their world, from the grandest temple to the smallest farm. The proof of this divine connection was the Coricancha, the temple of the sun in the capital city of Cusco. Its walls were not merely decorated with gold, they were sheathed in it so brilliantly that when the morning light struck, the entire structure must have seemed like a second sun resting on the earth. Inside, a golden disc representing Inca was positioned to catch the first rays of dawn, filling the sacred space with a blinding, divine light. This temple was more than a building, it was the navel of their universe, the central anchor from which all power, both spiritual and earthly, emanated. From this golden heart, a web of sacred energy stretched across the empire. These were the Sek's invisible lines that radiated out from the Coricancha like spokes on a colossal wheel. Along each line, hundreds of huacas or sacred shrines were meticulously placed. A huaca could be a spring, a peculiar rock formation, a mountain peak, or a man-made altar. Each one was not only a place of worship but a celestial marker, its location carefully chosen to align with the rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and stars on specific days of the year. This system transformed the entire empire into a vast, living astronomical observatory and calendar. The Sek lines organized time, space, and society itself, dictating the schedules of rituals and festivals for every clan and community. The most crucial of these festivals was Inti Raymi, the grand celebration of the winter solstice. As the sun reached its lowest, weakest point in the sky, the Inca faced a profound anxiety. Would their father, Inti, continue his journey and return to strength, or would he fade away, leaving the world in perpetual cold and darkness? Inti Raymi was their answer, a 9-day spectacle of music, dancing, feasting, and sacrifices designed to coax the sun back. The Sapa Inca himself would preside, making offerings of sacred chicha beer and llamas to ensure the sun's return, and with it, the fertility of the land for the coming season. In this moment, the entire empire, connected by the invisible threads of the Seks, focused its collective will on a single celestial goal, binding the people to their god, their king, and the very cosmos that sustained them. The Inca's sun-woven empire gave way to a world where the sky was a stage for epic human dramas. For the ancient Greeks, the heavens were the magnificent and often treacherous court of the Olympian gods, ruled by Zeus from his cloud-shrouded throne. His voice was the thunder, his weapon the lightning bolt, and his will was written in the very patterns of the stars. The constellations were not random arrangements of light but frozen myths, eternal reminders of heroes, monsters, and tragedies. The great hunter Orion forever pursued the Pleiades across the dome of night, while the vain Queen Cassiopeia was fixed in her chair, circling the pole in perpetual humiliation. Every twinkling light told a story of love, jealousy, or vengeance played out by the gods who controlled human destiny. This celestial theater was the very fabric of their culture, a divine soap opera that explained the world's mysteries. Yet, from this rich soil of myth, a revolutionary new way of thinking began to sprout. In the bustling ports of Ionia, a man named Thales gazed at the same stars and asked a different kind of question. He wondered not which god was pulling the sun across the sky, but what natural laws governed its motion. He famously predicted a solar eclipse not by appeasing a deity, but by observing a repeating pattern. This was a seismic shift, the moment the sky began its transformation from a realm of capricious gods to a universe of predictable order. His student, Anaximander, proposed the Earth floated freely in space, a radical idea that challenged the very foundations of myth. This new breed of thinker, the philosopher-scientist, sought explanations within nature itself, laying the intellectual foundation for all of Western science. But it was the work of Claudius Ptolemy, centuries later, that would crystallize this understanding into a system that held for over 1,000 years. Living in the great library of Alexandria, Ptolemy compiled the astronomical knowledge of the Greco-Roman world into a single, breathtaking masterpiece. His model placed the Earth unmoving at the center of the universe. Surrounding it were a series of perfect crystalline spheres, each one carrying a planet, the sun, the moon, and finally the fixed stars. This geocentric cosmos was a complex and beautiful clockwork, its gears turning in perfect circles and epicycles to explain the observed retrograde motions of the wandering planets. Ptolemy's system was so elegant and mathematically precise that it became the unquestioned truth of the cosmos, a testament to human reason's power to map the heavens. It was a universe both divine and knowable, a celestial machine whose gears were first glimpsed by those who dared to look past the gods and seek the mechanism behind the magic. Where the Greeks saw a celestial machine, the Norse heard the groaning of a great and ancient tree. Their cosmos was not a clockwork of spheres but a living, breathing ecosystem, a colossal ash tree named Yggdrasil. Its branches stretched high above to hold the heavens, its roots dug deep into the underworld, and our own world, Midgard, was nestled somewhere in its mighty trunk. The sky itself was simply a part of this vast, organic architecture, a canopy of leaves and branches where the gods lived out their own epic and often violent sagas. At the very top of this cosmic order sat Odin, the All-Father, a god whose thirst for wisdom was as profound as his power. He did not simply possess knowledge, he suffered for it. In a shattering act of self-sacrifice, he hung himself from the branches of Yggdrasil for 9 days and 9 nights, pierced by his own spear. He sought the secrets of the runes, the magical alphabet that held the power of creation and destiny. And his sacrifice did not end there. To drink from the well of cosmic knowledge guarded by the head of the giant Mimir, Odin willingly plucked out his own eye. This one-eyed god, therefore, saw more than any other, his single gaze piercing the illusions of the world to perceive the deeper truths woven into the fabric of Yggdrasil itself. While Odin sought wisdom, his son Thor was the embodiment of raw, protective power. He was the god of thunder, the beloved defender of both gods and humanity. His chariot, drawn by 2 mighty goats, did not sail calmly across the sky like the Egyptian sun bark. It rumbled. The crashing of its wheels was the thunder that shook the halls of Midgard, and the sparks from its passage were the lightning that split the clouds. For a people whose lives depended on the sea and the soil, Thor was a vital force, a divine warrior who kept the chaotic giants at bay and brought the storms that nourished the land. Connecting the world of humans to the realm of the gods was the Bifrost, a burning, shimmering rainbow bridge. This was not a gentle arc of color but a bridge of fire, a terrifying and magnificent pathway guarded by the watchful god Heimdall. It was the only route between Midgard and the divine fortress of Asgard, a symbol of the fragile but essential connection between humanity and the gods. To travel the realms of this world tree, the Norse relied on more than myth. They possessed a remarkable tool for navigating the real skies. The sunstone was a legendary crystal, thought to be a piece of cordierite or calcite that could pinpoint the position of the sun even on completely overcast days or through dense fog. By looking through the stone and rotating it, a skilled navigator could see patterns of polarization in the sky's light, revealing the hidden sun's location. This was not magic, but a brilliant application of natural physics, allowing their longships to traverse the treacherous North Atlantic when others would be hopelessly lost. Yet, underlying this entire vibrant cosmos was a deep and pervasive sense of doom. The Norse believed that even the gods were subject to fate, and their destiny was Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. This was not a quiet end, but a final, apocalyptic battle foretold by terrifying celestial signs. The stars would vanish from the sky, the sun and moon would be swallowed by wolves, and the earth would tremble so violently that all bonds would shatter. The Bifrost itself would crack and break under the weight of the marching armies of giants and the dead. In this ultimate winter, gods, monsters, and heroes would clash in a final confrontation that would consume the entire world in fire and flood. But from the scorched earth and the submerged world, a new green land would emerge, and a new generation of gods and a lone human couple would begin the cycle again. The Norse cosmos was a place of brutal honesty, where even the mightiest tree could rot and the bravest god could fall. Yet from that destruction, life would always stubbornly find a way to begin anew. For the Aztecs, the sun was not a benevolent life-giver but a dying star in constant need of resuscitation. Their universe was a place of profound terror and beauty, balanced on a knife's edge, where the very existence of the world depended on a single, brutal transaction. At its heart was Tanatia, the sun god, a fearsome deity who demanded a constant supply of human energy, of precious life force, to power his daily journey across the sky. His face, a grimacing visage with a protruding tongue representing a ritual flint knife, stares out from the center of the colossal Aztec sunstone. This massive sculpture is less a calendar and more a cosmic diagram of their entire terrifying reality. It tells the story of the 5 suns, the 5 cosmic ages through which the world has lived and died. The first era was destroyed by jaguars, the second by great winds, the third by a rain of fire, and the fourth by a worldwide flood. Each previous sun had perished because the gods were not satisfied. The current age, the one we live in now, is the 5th sun, known as Nahui Olan, or 4 movement. Its name signifies the cataclysmic earthquake that is prophesied to destroy it. The Aztecs believed they were living in the final, precarious chapter of existence, and only through constant, fervent effort could they stave off the inevitable end. This was the sacred duty that defined their civilization. To feed Tanatia and strengthen him for his battle through the darkness each night, they offered the most powerful substance they possessed, the human heart. This belief culminated at the Templo Maya, the great temple of their capital, Tenochtitlan. This towering pyramid was a physical model of their cosmos, with one side dedicated to Tlaloc, the god of rain, and the other to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun. Its alignment was a masterpiece of celestial engineering. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun would rise directly between the 2 shrines at the summit, a dramatic visual representation of the cosmic balance they fought so desperately to maintain. It was upon those blood-drenched steps that their high priests would perform the most vital of rituals. A captive warrior, seen as a sacred offering, would be stretched across a stone. With an obsidian blade, the priest would open the chest and raise the still beating heart to the sky. This act was not one of simple cruelty, but of profound necessity. The heart, the essence of life, was the divine food, the chalchihuatl, or precious water, that would quench the sun's thirst and give it the strength to rise again the next morning. Every sunrise was not a guarantee, but a victory won through the night's terrible sacrifice. Every dawn was a collective sigh of relief that the world had not ended, that the cosmic contract had been fulfilled for one more day. While the Aztecs fought to feed a dying sun, ancient China sought harmony with a perfect cosmic order. Their sky was not a battlefield of gods, but a celestial mirror of the empire itself, ruled by a supreme and impersonal force known as Tian, or heaven. Tian was not a personified deity with a beard and a temper. It was the ultimate moral authority, the source of all legitimate power, and the very principle of balance in the universe. Its most profound gift to humanity was the mandate of heaven. This was the divine right to rule, but it was not unconditional. A just and virtuous emperor received the mandate, and his reign would be marked by peace, prosperity, and celestial favor. But if he became corrupt, selfish, or incompetent, heaven would withdraw its support. The signs of this withdrawal were unmistakable: natural disasters like floods and famines, social unrest, and most tellingly, terrifying omens in the sky. A dynasty would fall, and a new, more worthy ruler would rise, having received the mandate himself. this concept made the emperor the son of heaven, a title of immense responsibility. His primary duty was to serve as the lone conduit between the earthly realm and the celestial one, maintaining a perfect harmony between them. He did this through strict rituals, correct governance, and by living a life of absolute virtue. The entire stability of the empire rested on his shoulders, and the sky was his report card. To read that report card, the Chinese developed one of the oldest and most continuous astronomical traditions in the world. Imperial astronomers working from observatory platforms kept a meticulous nightly watch. Their duty was to record everything, the predictable movements of the stars and the shocking, unexpected events. They documented the appearances of what they called broom stars, or comets, seeing them as celestial brooms sweeping away the old order, a clear sign that the emperor's mandate was being questioned. In the year 1054, they recorded a guest star, a point of light so bright it was visible in the daytime for 23 days. We now know this was the supernova that created the Crab Nebula. To the Chinese court, this was not a distant stellar explosion. It was a brilliant and urgent memorandum from heaven itself, a direct commentary on the emperor's rule. This vast archive of observations, compiled over centuries, allowed them to refine a lunisolar calendar of breathtaking precision. The calendar was not merely a tool for farmers to know when to plant rice, it was the sacred schedule of the state. The emperor, as the son of heaven, would announce the new year and the beginning of seasons from the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, performing rituals that aligned human time with cosmic time. Every festival, every tax collection, every military campaign was timed according to this celestial clock. Failure to maintain an accurate calendar was a sure sign that the harmony was broken and the mandate was slipping away. In this system, the sky was a vast, silent, and perfect bureaucracy, and the fate of dynasties hung on the unpredictable flicker of a distant star. The cosmic order of China's mandate of heaven gives way to a profound and enduring silence. The Indus Valley civilization, also known as the Harappan culture, thrived for centuries along the banks of great rivers, building some of the ancient world's most sophisticated cities, and then they vanished, leaving behind no royal tombs, no grand temples, and no deciphered written records. Their entire worldview is a magnificent puzzle, and the only clues we have to their beliefs are found in a handful of small, intricate artifacts and the ghostly outlines of their urban plans. Without a Rosetta Stone to translate their script, we are left to read the language of their objects and their architecture. One of the most compelling of these objects is the small stone statue known as the Priest King. Discovered at Mohenjo-Daro, this bearded figure with his serene, half-closed eyes and his simple head, and exudes an aura of calm authority, but it is the design on his robe that captures the imagination. Etched into the fabric is a trefoil pattern, a symbol that some scholars believe represents a sacred cosmic tree or perhaps even a stylized star. This single detail suggests his power may not have been purely political but celestial, that he was a ruler whose authority was woven from the same threads as the cosmos itself. An even more tantalizing clue comes from a tiny stone seal, no larger than a postage stamp. This is the Pashupati seal, and it depicts a seated figure in what appears to be a deep meditative pose, surrounded by a rhinoceros, an elephant, a tiger, and a buffalo. The figure has 3 faces and wears a headdress with horns, a clear marker of divinity. Many see in this image a prototype of the great Hindu god Shiva, who is later known as Pashupati, the lord of animals. He is seated in a yogic posture, a pose of ultimate spiritual power, and above him hangs what might be a sacred pipal tree or a direct symbol of the cosmos. This suggests a belief system where a supreme being, through meditation and inner focus, could command the natural world and commune directly with the universe. But the most staggering evidence of their celestial connection is not held in a museum case. It is written across the landscape in the foundations of their cities. Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were laid out with an almost unnerving precision. Their streets run in a perfect grid pattern, aligned precisely to the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west. Achieving this on such a massive scale was not an accident of urban design. It required an advanced and systematic understanding of astronomy. Their engineers and priests must have been master stargazers, using the fixed points of the northern stars or the rising and setting of the sun on the equinoxes to survey their world with breathtaking accuracy. This was not just for practical drainage or orderly traffic. This alignment was likely sacred, a way of anchoring their entire civilization to the fundamental order of the cosmos. Their cities were not just built on Earth, they were mirrors of the heavens, their straight streets and orderly blocks reflecting the perceived harmony of the celestial sphere. In the profound silence they left behind, their greatest testament is this: a civilization that measured its worth and built its world in perfect alignment with the stars. For the Celts, the world was alive with sacred fire. Their druids looked to the sky and saw not a distant government or a dying god, but a great turning wheel of seasons, each marked by a blaze of ritual flame. The sun was a powerful, generous force personified by deities like Lugh, the skilled god of light and craftsmanship, whose festivals celebrated the first harvest. The entire Celtic year was structured around 4 great fire festivals, moments when the veil between the human and the other world was thin, and the community gathered to light bonfires that mirrored the sun's power on Earth. Imbolc in early February heralded the returning strength of the sun and the first lambing of the ewes. Beltane on May 1st was a celebration of pure, fertile light, a time to drive cattle between 2 great fires for purification and protection. Lugnasad in August honored Lugh and the beginning of the harvest, while Samhain at the end of October marked the Celtic New Year. When the sun's power waned, the herds came in for winter, and the spirits of the dead were thought to walk among the living. These were not arbitrary dates. They were precise astronomical markers, the cross-quarter days that fell exactly between the solstices and equinoxes, dividing the year into its 4 essential, sacred parts. Long before the Celts emerged as a culture, the ancient landscape of Britain and Ireland was already inscribed with celestial knowledge. They inherited and adapted mighty structures like Newgrange in Ireland, a massive spiraling tomb older than the pyramids. Its most stunning feature is a roof box, a small opening carefully positioned above the entrance. For just a few days around the winter solstice, as the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky, a single, narrow beam of sunlight pierces this opening. It travels down a long, dark passageway to illuminate the inner burial chamber for precisely 17 minutes, flooding the ancient stone with a golden light that had not been seen for a full year. This was not an accident of construction. It was a deliberate, breathtaking feat of engineering designed to capture the moment of the sun's rebirth. Similarly, while Stonehenge was built by a much earlier people, the Celts who later inhabited the land would have recognized its power. Its giant sarsen stones are aligned to frame the rising sun on the summer solstice, a day of maximum light and vitality. The Druids were the masters of this celestial calendar. They were the philosophers, judges, and astronomers of their people, a learned class that spent 20 years memorizing their entire body of sacred knowledge. They did not write this down, they carried it in their minds, passing it orally from one generation to the next. They watched the movements of the stars and planets, interpreting the will of the gods through their dance. They were the timekeepers, the ones who decided when the fires should be lit and the festivals begun, ensuring their entire society moved in perfect rhythm with the great, breathing cosmos around them. For a culture spanning over 65,000 years, the sky was a living library. Aboriginal Australians did not simply look up at the stars, they walked within a celestial storyscape known as the Dreamtime. This is not a time in the distant past, but a continuous, eternal reality where ancestral beings forged the world and its laws, their journeys and deeds permanently recorded in the land and the heavens above it. The night sky is a vast, interconnected narrative, a sacred text written in starlight that dictates social law, seasonal cycles, and the very identity of the people. Here, the constellations are not pictures formed by connecting bright stars, but often dark shapes silhouetted against the glowing river of the Milky Way. The most famous of these is the emu in the sky. Its head is formed by the dark Coalsack Nebula near the Southern Cross, its long neck and bulky body stretching along the galactic dust lanes. This is not a random pattern. When the emu appears high in the evening sky, its body fully formed in the darkness, it signals to the people that the real emus on the land are now fat and nesting, their eggs ready to be gathered. The celestial story directly informs the earthly harvest, a timeless ecological calendar written in cosmic dust. But the sky is more than a practical guide, it is a moral compass. The story of the seven sisters, the Pleiades, is told across many Aboriginal groups, often as a tale of sisters pursued by a man or group of men, represented by the stars in Orion's belt. This narrative teaches lessons about kinship, respect, and the consequences of breaking social taboos. Every shimmering light and patch of darkness is a chapter in this epic, a constant reminder of the ancestral presence that watches over the land. Navigating the vast, featureless deserts of Australia required a map, and that map was the sky. Travelers used the positions of stars to guide them along song lines, the invisible pathways that crisscross the continent. A song line is both a physical route and a sequence of verses, each one describing the landmarks, water sources, and celestial markers for that section of the journey. By singing the song in the correct order, a person could navigate across thousands of miles using the stars as their checkpoints. This deep, intimate knowledge of the heavens was not an abstract science, it was the very fabric of existence, weaving together lore, and survival into a single, unbroken story that has been told since the first dawn. The Polynesians saw the open ocean not as a barrier but as a pathway, a celestial highway written in the language of the stars. Their world was a vast blue expanse dotted with islands, and their ability to connect these dots across thousands of miles of empty sea was a feat of human genius rooted entirely in the sky. At the heart of their cosmos was Cain, the great god of creation, of life, and of the heavens themselves. He was the source of all fresh water and sunlight, the ultimate ancestor whose divine breath filled the universe. The sky was his sacred domain, a map and a compass gifted to his children. To sail was to pray, and every voyage was an act of faith in his celestial order. This faith was embodied in the art of wayfinding, a skill so profound it allowed navigators to guide their double-hulled canoes from Tahiti to Hawaii and back, a round trip of over 5,000 miles using no instruments whatsoever. They were living compasses, their senses tuned to the rhythms of nature. They watched the ocean itself, reading the subtle patterns of swells refracted around unseen islands. They observed the flight paths of birds, knowing that a tern flying out at dusk was heading toward land. They tasted the salinity of the water and smelled the scent of blossoms carried on distant winds. But the most constant and reliable guide was always the sky. They memorized a mental star compass, a map of the heavens divided into 32 directional houses. Each house was not a single point, but a segment of the horizon where specific stars would rise and set. As one star dipped below the waves, the navigator would simply turn to the next one rising in its place, keeping a constant bearing through the night. This required an encyclopedic knowledge of the celestial sphere. Certain stars became their guiding lights, their celestial lighthouses. The star Hoculaire, what we call Arcturus, burned brightly directly over the Hawaiian Islands. For a voyager sailing north from Tahiti, watching Hoculaire climb higher and higher in the sky was the ultimate sign that they were on the correct path home. This sacred knowledge was not written down. It was passed orally from master to apprentice through chants, stories, and endless hours of observation, a fragile thread of wisdom that connected generations. It was this celestial literacy that allowed them to discover and settle every habitable island across the immense Pacific, turning the greatest ocean on Earth into their own intimate neighborhood. While the Polynesians read the stars as a map for their voyages, the ancient Hebrews heard them as a chorus of praise. Their sky was the handiwork of a single, all-powerful creator, Yahweh, a divine sovereign whose glory was declared by the heavens themselves. This was a radical departure from the pantheons of gods and goddesses that filled the skies of their neighbors. In the Hebrew worldview, the sun and moon were not deities to be appeased, but great lamps placed in the firmament by God to govern the day and the night. They were creations, not rulers, servants of a will far greater than their own. This cosmology is vividly described in the book of Genesis with the concept of the rakia, often translated as the firmament. This was not empty space, but a solid, dome-like structure hammered out by God to separate the waters above from the waters below. The stars were fixed to this dome, and the rain fell when God opened its windows, allowing the upper waters to pour through. It was a powerful image of a cosmos brought into being through divine order, a sanctuary built to house the earth and its people. Within this ordered cosmos, the celestial bodies served a crucial, practical purpose. They were God's clock for marking sacred time. The rhythm of life was set by the lunar cycle, with the first sliver of the new moon, Rosh Chodesh, announced with the blast of a shofar. This was more than a calendar date. It was a monthly renewal, a sacred occasion that dictated the timing of major pilgrimages and festivals like Passover and Sukkot. Even more fundamental was the weekly Sabbath, a day of rest sanctified by God Himself after the 6 days of creation. The regular, dependable cycle of the sun, marking evening and morning, framed this holy rhythm, turning time itself into a recurring opportunity for communion with the divine. This relationship with the sky, however, came with a strict boundary. While their neighbors practiced elaborate forms of astrology, seeking to divine the future from the stars, this was generally forbidden to the Hebrews. To them, consulting the stars for personal fate was an act of faithlessness, a betrayal of the one God who held all destiny in His hands. The stars were not independent agents. They were part of the heavenly host, a vast assembly that followed Yahweh's command. This did not mean the sky was silent, far from it. Celestial phenomena were potent signs, direct messages from God. A comet was not a random icy wanderer, but a burning scroll of divine judgment. A solar eclipse was not merely the moon blocking the sun. It was a moment when God could dim His own creation as a warning or a portent. The sky was a canvas upon which God painted His will, its unusual events serving as dramatic punctuation in the story of His relationship with humanity. So, for the ancient Hebrews, the night sky was both a declaration and a dialogue, a testament to God's power and a medium for His direct communication, all while remaining firmly under the control of a single, omnipotent will. In the hymns of the Vedic sages, the cosmos was a vibrant, breathing hymn of its own. These ancient poets of India looked upon the sun, the moon, and the starry expanse and saw not cold orbs of light, but radiant, conscious beings they called devas. Surya, the sun god, rode across the sky in a chariot drawn by 7 brilliant horses, his form the very essence of sight and life. Chandra, the moon, was the lord of plants and of the mind, his waxing and waning governing the tides of consciousness and the flow of sacred soma. And arching over it all was Diau's Peter, the Sky Father, a primordial deity whose name echoes across languages, sharing its root with the Greek Zeus and the Roman Jupiter. This entire celestial court operated according to a profound, underlying principle known as Rita. Rita was the cosmic order, the eternal rhythm and truth that held the universe together. It was the reason the sun rose without fail, the seasons turned in their unerring cycle, and the stars maintained their fixed paths. The movement of the heavenly bodies was the most visible and majestic expression of this divine law. For the Vedic people, human duty was to live in harmony with Rita, to align their actions, their rituals, and their very lives with this cosmic rhythm. This sacred need to synchronize human time with cosmic time gave birth to Jyotisha, the science of light. It was considered one of the 6 essential limbs of the Vedas, a body of knowledge as vital to understanding the scriptures as understanding grammar itself. Jyotisha was far more than simple stargazing. It was a sacred science that wove together astronomy, astrology, and mathematics into a single, holy discipline. Its primary purpose was profoundly practical, to determine the most auspicious moments or muhurtas for performing rituals. A sacrifice offered at the wrong time under misaligned stars was believed to be ineffective or even harmful, a disruption of the delicate balance of Rita. So the Vedic priests became master calculators, developing complex mathematical formulas to track the motions of the planets and predict eclipses. They mapped the sky into 27 lunar mansions, the nakshatras, each one a resting place for the moon on its monthly journey. The position of the moon in a specific nakshatra at the moment of a birth or a ceremony held immense significance, connecting that individual event to the grand, turning wheel of the cosmos. In this worldview, to look up at the night sky was to read the pages of a divine manual, a guide to living in perfect, resonant harmony with the universe itself. The bull leaps across the fresco, a powerful arc of muscle and motion frozen in time. For the Minoans of ancient Crete, this was more than a sport, it was likely a sacred dance with the heavens. The bull permeated their art and their rituals, a symbol of such immense power that many scholars believe it represented the constellation Taurus, a celestial bull whose appearance in the night sky governed their calendar and their spiritual life. This was a civilization that worshipped without building grand temples to their gods. Instead, they sought the divine in the high places. They climbed mountain peaks, building altars where the earth met the sky, and they descended into deep, dark caves, natural portals to the underworld. In these sacred spaces, they performed rituals timed with the rising of the sun or the phases of the moon, aligning their ceremonies with the cosmic cycles they revered. Their connection to the sky was woven directly into their architecture. The vast labyrinthine palace of Knossos was a marvel of celestial engineering. Its central courtyards were precisely oriented, and its ingenious light wells were not just for ventilation. They were carefully designed to funnel shafts of sunlight deep into the palace interior, marking specific days of the year. On the solstices, the longest and shortest days, the sun would strike particular walls or altars with dramatic effect, turning the entire palace into a giant seasonal clock. This was a culture that lived in rhythm with the cosmos, their daily lives, their most dangerous rituals, and their very homes all choreographed by the silent, turning wheel of the stars. Deep within the earth, the Pueblo peoples found their connection to the sky. In the American Southwest, their world was built upon a profound axis that linked the underworld, the earthly plane, and the heavens above, a relationship perfectly embodied by the kiva. These circular, underground chambers are far more than simple rooms. They are symbolic centers of the universe. Entering a kiva means descending a ladder from the sunny world down into a sacred, enclosed space, a return to the primal womb of the earth. At the very heart of the kiva floor is the sipapu, a small, round hole. This is not merely an architectural feature. It is the very place of emergence, the portal through which the ancestral Pueblo people first entered this world from the previous underworld. It serves as a constant reminder of their origins and a direct conduit for spiritual energy to flow between the layers of existence. The kiva's design itself is a cosmic map, its roof representing the dome of the sky, and its central fire pit echoing the life-giving sun, all oriented to the cardinal directions to maintain harmony with the cosmos. This harmony was meticulously maintained by a key figure, the sun priest. His duty was one of intense, patient observation. From a fixed vantage point, he would watch the eastern horizon day after day, year after year, tracking the sun's precise journey. His goal was to pinpoint the exact moments of the solstices and equinoxes, not as abstract astronomical events, but as the critical turning points of the year. When the sun reached its southernmost standstill at the winter solstice, it was a signal to begin ceremonies that would encourage its return and the gradual lengthening of days. The summer solstice marked the sun's peak power, dictating the timing for rain dances and prayers for the coming harvest. His observations were the community's calendar, telling them exactly when to plant corn in the dry desert soil and when to gather for the complex, days-long ceremonies that structured their entire lives. A miscalculation could mean missing the brief window for planting, threatening the community's survival. Guiding this entire celestial cycle were the benevolent celestial parents, the Sun Father and the Moon Mother. In Pueblo cosmology, these are not distant, indifferent forces, but intimate, caring beings central to their creation stories. The Sun Father, or Tawa as he is known to the Hopi, is the generous giver of light, warmth, and life itself. His daily journey across the sky is a conscious act of watching over his children, his energy nurturing the corn, beans, and squash that sustain them. The Moon Mother, with her gentle, reflective light and her clear, rhythmic cycles, governs the tides of time, the flow of water, and the mysteries of childbirth. Together, they represent the essential balance of the universe, the masculine and feminine principles that together create and sustain all life. Their relationship is woven into the very fabric of daily existence, from the prayers offered at dawn to the stories told under the soft glow of the moon. For the Pueblo peoples, the sky was not a separate realm. It was home, a place where their divine parents lived, and every ritual performed in the kiva, every observation made by the sun priest, was an act of maintaining that sacred familial bond. Above the orderly cosmos of the Pueblo peoples raged a far grander and more ancient battle. For the ancient Persians, the sky was the sacred domain of a single, uncreated god of light, Ahura Mazda, the wise lord. This was a revolutionary vision, a cosmos defined not by a pantheon of squabbling deities, but by a fundamental, eternal struggle between two primal forces. Ahura Mazda embodied all that was good, true, and orderly, his very essence synonymous with Asha, the cosmic principle of truth and righteousness. Arrayed against him was Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit of chaos, falsehood, and darkness. This was the world's first fully developed dualistic cosmology, and every element of existence was a battlefield in this war, including the heavens themselves. The sun, the moon, and the stars were not gods, but glorious creations of Ahura Mazda. Their predictable, orderly movements across the sky were a daily demonstration of Asha in action, a celestial army marching in perfect formation against the forces of chaos. The sun, personified as the divine being Mithra, was a judge and warrior, his all-seeing eye witnessing contracts and oaths, his light banishing the shadows where evil could hide. The moon, known as Ma, governed the rhythms of time and the growth of plants, her gentle light a comfort and a guide. To honor this divine light, the Persians turned to the most pure and brilliant element they could create on earth, fire. It became the supreme symbol of Ahura Mazda's presence, a sacred manifestation of his energy and wisdom. They did not worship the fire itself, but saw it as the perfect medium through which to focus their prayers towards the heavenly creator. Their fire temples were not dark, smoky chambers, but meticulously maintained structures where a holy flame, often fueled by sandalwood, was kept burning continuously by a dedicated priesthood. Entering a fire temple was to step into a space of absolute purity, where the earthly flame connected directly to the cosmic light of the sun and stars. This profound need to live in harmony with Asha demanded a precise understanding of cosmic time. The Persians developed one of the most advanced calendars of the ancient world, a solar calendar of 365 days divided into 12 months. This was not just for planting crops, it was a sacred map of the year, with each month and day dedicated to a different divine aspect of creation. Their New Year celebration, Nowruz, which means New Day, was and still is tied precisely to the spring equinox, a moment of perfect balance between day and night that symbolizes the ultimate triumph of light over darkness. In this worldview, every human being had a role to play. Each person was a soldier in the cosmic war, and their choices to speak truth, to tend the land, to honor their contracts, were active blows struck for the cause of a Shah. The orderly movement of the stars was their inspiration, and the sacred fire was their eternal reminder, a promise that the chaos of Angra Mainyu would ultimately be defeated, and the world would be made perfectly whole again. This powerful vision of a universe divided between light and darkness, with humanity holding the power to choose, would echo for centuries, deeply influencing the development of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and leaving an indelible mark on the spiritual landscape of the world. Their knowledge of the stars seems to defy time itself. In the remote Bandiagara escarpment of Mali, the Dogon people have preserved an astronomical tradition that has captivated and puzzled the outside world for decades. Their spiritual life is woven around the Sirius star system, which they see as the center of the cosmos. For generations, their priests have spoken of a tiny, incredibly dense companion star to the brilliant Sirius we all see. They call this star Potolo, meaning the smallest seed, and describe it as the heaviest thing in the universe, made of a metal brighter than iron, orbiting Sirius in an elliptical path over a period of 50 years. What makes this so extraordinary is that Potolo is Sirius B, a white dwarf star completely invisible to the naked eye. It was only confirmed by Western astronomers with powerful telescopes in the 19th century, and its immense density and 50-year orbital period were verified even later. Yet the Dogon appeared to know these precise, invisible details for centuries. Their creation story explains this celestial knowledge with a profound mystery. They believe their world was visited long ago by the Nommo, amphibious beings who came to Earth from the Sirius system in a great arc that spun through the sky. These fish-like teachers, described as masters of water and the life-giving force, are said to have gifted the Dogon with this cosmic wisdom, instructing them in agriculture, law, and the secrets of the stars before departing. This narrative has inevitably made the Dogon a central pillar of the ancient astronaut hypothesis, the idea that extraterrestrial visitors shared advanced knowledge with early human cultures. How could a people without telescopes know about an invisible star? The debate is fierce and multifaceted. Some researchers propose the Dogon could have gained this knowledge through contact with Westerners in the 1930s or 40s, before the anthropologists who made them famous first arrived. Others argue for a more organic, though no less brilliant, explanation. Perhaps generations of meticulous, naked-eye observation of the subtle wobble in Sirius's position, a wobble caused by the gravitational tug of its invisible companion, allowed their priest astronomers to deduce the existence and even the orbit of Potolo. This would be a staggering feat of long-term celestial deduction, a testament to the power of human observation passed down through an unbroken oral tradition. Whether the source was otherworldly visitors or earthly genius, the Dogon stand as a powerful reminder that the sky holds its secrets close, and sometimes the most profound cosmic truths are found not in a telescope's lens, but in the enduring stories of a people. Across the sea, the Japanese archipelago saw divinity in every facet of the natural world. In the Shinto tradition, the wind, the mountains, and the sky itself were alive with kami, sacred spirits or gods that represented the essence of existence. The most revered of all was Amaterasu, the magnificent sun goddess whose radiant light nurtured the rice paddies and brought order to the world. Her myth is one of profound drama and restoration. When her stormy brother, Susanoo, wreaked such havoc that she retreated into a celestial cave, the entire world was plunged into darkness. The other gods, desperate to lure her out, staged a raucous celebration outside the cave entrance. Their laughter and the sight of her own dazzling reflection in a mirror they had hung from a tree finally coaxed her forth, and light returned to the world. This story was more than a simple myth. It was the foundational narrative of the Japanese state, for the emperors of Japan were believed to be direct descendants of this sun goddess herself. This divine lineage made the emperor more than a political ruler. He was the nation's highest priest, a living bridge between the heavenly kami and the earthly realm. His most sacred duty was to maintain harmony, or wa, ensuring through ritual that the sun would continue to shine and the seasons would turn in their proper order. This spiritual contract was centered at the Ai's Grand Shrine, the most sacred site in all of Shinto dedicated to Amaterasu. What happens here is unique and profound. The shrine's main buildings are not ancient relics left to weather the centuries. Instead, they are ritually dismantled and rebuilt every 20 years on adjacent, identical plots of land. This practice, known as Shikinen Sengu, is a breathtaking act of renewal. It is not about preservation in the usual sense, but about the perpetual rebirth of the sacred space itself, a symbolic act that mirrors the cyclical nature of life, death, and regeneration found throughout the natural world. It ensures that the skills and traditions of construction are passed down through the generations, and it keeps the connection to Amaterasu eternally fresh and vibrant. Every celestial event was a direct communication from the kami. A solar eclipse was not merely the moon blocking the sun. It was a moment of grave concern, a temporary hiding of the goddess that required prayers and rituals to encourage her return. A comet was a powerful and often unsettling message scrawled across the night sky. The emperor and his priests were the interpreters of this celestial language, constantly reading the heavens for signs of divine displeasure or favor. Their rituals were not requests but respectful acts of participation in a cosmic dance, a way of aligning human activity with the will of the kami to ensure the sun's light, and with it, life itself, would never again retreat into a cave. Before the Maya charted Venus and the Aztecs fed the sun, a civilization rose from the sweltering jungles of the Mexican Gulf Coast that would define the spiritual landscape of an entire continent. The Olmec, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, laid the very first stones upon which all later sky-watching empires would build. Their world was one of colossal ambition, where rulers carved their divine authority from solid basalt boulders, creating the massive head sculptures that have become their signature. These brooding, helmeted faces, some weighing over 20 tons, are not anonymous portraits. They are likely images of powerful chieftains who claimed their right to rule came not just from the earth but from the heavens above. To gaze upon one of these heads is to look into the face of a man who believed he was the living conduit between his people and the cosmos. This celestial connection was not merely claimed, it was systematically calculated and etched into the heart of their ceremonial centers. At the site of La Venta, a grand complex of pyramids and plazas was laid out with an astonishing precision that reveals a deep understanding of the sky. The entire site is aligned 8 degrees west of north, an orientation that was not arbitrary. This specific angle corresponds with the path of the sun and other celestial bodies, suggesting the Olmec architects were building a terrestrial mirror of the cosmic order. The very ground they walked on was a map of their universe, with man-made mountains pointing toward the dwelling places of the gods. Their greatest intellectual achievement, however, was the creation of the first Mesoamerican calendar. This was a monumental leap in human thought, a system for capturing and controlling time itself. By tracking the cycles of the sun, the moon, and possibly Venus, the Olmec developed a complex interlocking calendar that could predict seasonal changes and organize ritual life. This was the prototype for the intricate calendrical systems that the Maya would later perfect, a foundational tool for linking human activity to the eternal rhythms of the sky. One of their most profound astronomical observations was the zenith passage of the sun. On 2 specific days of the year, the sun passes directly overhead at noon, and for a few moments vertical objects cast no shadow. In the dense, shadow-filled jungle, this would have been a moment of pure, startling magic. The world was suddenly illuminated from directly above, a phenomenon that surely seemed like a divine touch, a moment of perfect balance when the barrier between the earth and the sun dissolved. The Olmec likely marked these days with special ceremonies, understanding them as times of immense power and celestial alignment. At La Venta, the careful placement of their earthen pyramids and carved stone stelae may well have been designed to capture this exact solar event, framing it for the priests and rulers who stood at the apex of their society. In this way, the Olmec established the enduring template for Mesoamerican civilization, one where political power, sacred ritual, and cosmic order were inseparable strands of the same rope, a rope first woven in the humid air of the jungle. Thunder was the voice of a celestial warrior. For the ancient Slavs, the sky was a realm of raw, elemental power ruled by the supreme god Perun. With a flaming axe in his hand and a beard of storm clouds, he rode his chariot across the heavens, and the sound of its wheels was the crash of thunder that shook the world. Lightning was his divine weapon, striking down evil spirits and enemies alike. He was more than a weather god. He was the patron of warriors, the enforcer of oaths, and the ultimate symbol of masculine strength and authority. His presence was felt in every oak tree, which was considered his sacred dwelling, a living pillar connecting the earth to his stormy domain. Yet this powerful sky father was balanced by a life-giving force of equal importance, the sun god Dagobah. He was not a distant, fiery orb, but a divine ancestor, a grandfather to the Slavic people who crossed the sky each day in a chariot drawn by fiery horses. His journey brought not just light, but wealth and fortune, his very name meaning the giving god. He was the source of all warmth and fertility, his daily return from the darkness a promise that life would continue. This celestial partnership between the fierce Perun and the generous Dagobah reflected the core necessities of Slavic life, the need for protection in a dangerous world and the reliance on the sun for survival. Their entire mythic cycle was a grand story written in the turning of the seasons, a drama played out between the gods that directly mirrored their agricultural reality. The year was a constant battle. Perun would battle his underworld rival, the serpentine god Veles, who stole his cattle or caused drought. This divine conflict manifested in the real world as summer storms fighting the dry earth or the spring thaw overcoming the grip of winter. Their rituals were designed to support this cosmic struggle. They built their temples not in valleys but on high hills, placing their wooden idols and sacred spaces as close to the sky as possible. These were not elaborate stone structures, but powerful, organic sanctuaries open to the winds, where priests could read the signs of the clouds and offer sacrifices to Perun, often of bulls or roosters. For Dagobah, their veneration was woven into the fabric of daily life. Songs were sung to greet the sunrise, and rituals celebrated the summer and winter solstices, those critical turning points in the sun's strength. They knew their lives depended on this delicate balance, the sun's consistent grace and the thunder god's occasional, terrifying intervention. To stand on a hill under a brewing storm was to stand in the court of Perun, and to feel the dawn's first warmth was to receive a gift from Dagobah, a daily reminder that their world was alive with divine, celestial presence. Their mastery of the sky was carved in time itself. Beyond the grand pyramids and solar barges, the ancient Egyptians engineered a precise system of nightly timekeeping, a celestial clockwork that governed the sacred rhythms of their world. This system was built upon the decans, 36 star groups or small constellations that rose consecutively on the eastern horizon, each one heralding a new 10-day period. Over the course of a single night, a sequence of these decan stars would climb into the sky, each marking a different hour. To harness this cosmic schedule, they created star clocks, intricate diagrams painted on the inside lids of coffins and the ceilings of tombs. A typical star clock featured a grid with 36 columns, one for each decan, and 13 rows representing the 12 hours of the night. At the center of this grid sat a seated figure, an observer facing south. To tell the time, a priest would simply step outside, identify which decan was aligned with the seated figure's shoulder in the diagram, and read the corresponding hour from the chart. It was a practical, handheld observatory, a map that translated the silent procession of stars into actionable knowledge. This was not mere academic curiosity, it was essential for their most sacred duties. Many temple rituals had to be performed at specific, precise hours of the night, a time believed to be filled with potent spiritual energy. The star clocks ensured that the correct prayers and offerings were made at the exact moment the gods required them, maintaining the fragile balance between the earthly and divine realms. Over centuries, this elegant system of 12 decan hours for the night and 12 hours for the day evolved, formalizing the 24-hour day we still use today. In the cool, still air of an Egyptian night, a priest consulting his chart was not just telling time, he was synchronizing human ritual with the eternal, turning gears of the universe. One of the most remarkable testaments to their celestial obsession survives today in a library in Germany. The Dresden Codex, a bark paper book folded like an accordion, is one of only 4 known Maya books to escape the destruction of time and conquest. Its pages are not filled with simple stories, but with complex astronomical tables and calculations of breathtaking precision. The most famous of these is its Venus table, a chart spanning 104 years that tracks the planet's 584-day synodic cycle with an error of just 1 day in 5 centuries. This was not an abstract exercise in mathematics, it was a sacred almanac for predicting the moods of a dangerous god. The Maya saw Venus as a celestial manifestation of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity known as Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs. But this was not a gentle god of wisdom. When Venus appeared as the morning star, heralding the dawn after a period of invisibility, it was viewed as a baleful omen, a signal of impending war, conflict, and sudden upheaval. Its first rising was seen as the moment the god unleashed his spears upon the world. This belief transformed astronomy into a direct instrument of warfare and statecraft. Maya rulers were not just warriors, they were celestial strategists. They would meticulously plan their military campaigns and orchestrate raids to coincide with these potent Venusian events. Launching an attack under the gleam of the morning star was believed to infuse their efforts with the god's own destructive power, providing a divine advantage that could shatter enemy morale and ensure victory. The timing was everything, a carefully calculated act of aligning human ambition with the perceived will of the cosmos. In this way, the cold, precise calculations of the Dresden Codex became a living document of power, its inked numbers dictating the movement of armies and the fate of kingdoms under the watchful eye of a warlike star. Perched on a mountain ridge 2,000 feet above the Urubamba River, Machu Picchu was far more than a royal retreat. It was the ultimate expression of the Inca's celestial ambition, a city engineered to capture and commune with the heavens. At its spiritual heart stands the Intihuatana, the hitching post of the sun. This exquisitely carved granite pillar is not merely a sculpture, it is a complex astronomical instrument. On the equinoxes, when day and night hang in perfect balance, the sun stands directly overhead at noon. In that sacred moment, the Intihuatana stone casts no shadow whatsoever. It was as if the sun had been tethered, hitched to the earth itself, held in a state of perfect equilibrium. The priests would use this profound alignment to mark the seasons and perform rituals that ensured the sun's continued journey along its proper path, reinforcing their sacred contract with Inti. But the celestial alignments do not end there. The entire city is a symphony in stone, each movement composed to harmonize with cosmic events. The semicircular Temple of the Sun, one of Machu Picchu's most refined structures, is a precise solar observatory. Its curved wall and strategically placed windows are perfectly calibrated. During the June solstice, the rising sun streams directly through one of these windows, illuminating a ceremonial stone at the center of the temple in a brilliant, focused beam of light. This marked the sun's lowest point, the moment of Inti Raymi, and the beginning of its vital return. Just above this temple, the Room of the Three Windows frames a different celestial drama. These massive trapezoidal windows open to the east, perfectly aligned with the sacred peak of the Apu Putukusi and the rising of the Southern Cross constellation. For the Inca, the Milky Way was a celestial river, and the dark cloud constellations within it were as important as the stars. The Southern Cross, circling the southern pole, was a crucial navigational and spiritual marker, its appearance signaling important transitions in the agricultural and ritual calendar. Every building, staircase, and terrace in this remote citadel was placed with intention. The urban sector aligns with the cardinal directions, while sightlines from certain stones target the sunrise on specific days of the year. This was not a haphazard settlement, but a sacred machine built on a grand scale. As a royal estate, Machu Picchu was a powerful, tangible symbol of the Sapa Inca's divine authority. By building a city that literally harnessed the sun and stars, the Inca demonstrated a dominion that extended beyond the land and its people, reaching up to command the very cosmos that sustained them. This legendary sunstone was no mere myth, but a brilliant application of natural physics. The Vikings likely used a crystal of Iceland spar, a transparent form of calcite that possesses a unique property. It can split a beam of light into two separate rays, a phenomenon known as birefringence. On a completely overcast day, or when the sun was just below the horizon, the light filtering through the clouds becomes polarized, meaning its waves vibrate in a specific direction. The human eye cannot detect this, but the sunstone can. A navigator would hold the crystal up to the sky and slowly rotate it. By looking through the stone, they would watch for a change in the brightness of the two light rays inside the crystal. When the crystal was oriented in the direction of the sun's hidden position, the two images would appear equally bright, revealing the sun's location with startling accuracy. Modern experiments have proven this method is not just possible, but remarkably effective. Researchers using a replica sunstone have been able to pinpoint the sun's location even after it has set, with a precision sufficient for guiding a longship across the open ocean. This crystal was their secret weapon against the treacherous fog and endless twilight of the northern seas. Yet the sunstone was only one piece of a sophisticated navigational toolkit. Viking pilots were master readers of the natural world. They knew that certain seabirds like puffins and kittiwakes would fly out to sea to feed but always return to land at night, revealing the direction of the nearest coast. They followed the migration paths of whales, understanding that these great creatures navigated reliable underwater corridors. At night, they steered by the star paths, memorizing the fixed positions of the North Star and other key constellations. All of this hard-won knowledge, passed down through generations in songs and stories, combined with the magical clarity of the sunstone, transformed the terrifying expanse of the North Atlantic into a familiar highway. It was this fusion of celestial science and earthy wisdom that allowed them to cross from Norway to Iceland, and from Iceland to the shores of a new world they called Vinland, 5 centuries before Columbus ever set sail. Every 52 years, a profound silence would fall over the entire Aztec Empire. This was the end of a calendar cycle, the Zumulpilli, and the approach of a night that could be their last. As the final days of the 52-year cycle drained away, a collective terror gripped the people. They believed the world was aged and fragile, and the sun, Tunatia, might simply lack the strength to continue its journey. If the rituals failed, the stars would become monstrous demons called Tzitzimaim, descending from the sky to devour all of humanity, plunging the earth into an eternal, star-filled darkness. On this night, all fires in every home, temple, and workshop were extinguished. Pregnant women were locked in granaries for fear they might turn into feral beasts, and every clay pot in the empire was smashed against the ground. It was a symbolic end of all creation, a world stripped bare, waiting for a verdict from the heavens. The fate of everything rested on the shoulders of the priests who climbed the hill of the star, Huaxtlan, a mountain overlooking the great capital of Tenochtitlan. Their eyes were fixed on a single star cluster, Chanquistli, what we call the Pleiades. They watched breathless as this tiny group of lights climbed higher and higher into the midnight sky. The entire ceremony hinged on a single, precise celestial event, the moment the Pleiades passed directly overhead through the zenith. If the cluster continued its path, it meant the universe had granted them a reprieve, the world would not end. The moment the priests confirmed the passage, the tension broke in a shocking act of creation. A chosen captive, a warrior of great honor, was laid upon a stone altar. In a single, brutal motion, a priest would open the man's chest. Into the cavity of his still-living body, they plunged a ceremonial fire drill. The new fire, the first fire of the new age, was kindled not with wood but within a human heart. This sacred flame was then used to light a colossal bonfire atop the mountain, a beacon of hope visible for miles. Runners, their torches blazing with this new fire, would then race to every corner of the empire, carrying the embers to every city, every village, and every home. As the light returned, a great roar of relief would rise from the people. The world had been renewed for another 52 years. The sun would rise again, and the terrifying dance with the end of time would begin its slow countdown once more. This celestial bureaucracy required a permanent institution, and China's Imperial Astronomical Bureau provided exactly that. For nearly 2,000 years, this state-sponsored body of scholars and officials operated with a dual and often paradoxical mission. Their first duty was purely scientific, to make meticulous observations of the heavens in order to maintain the empire's lunisolar calendar. The calendar's accuracy was a direct measure of the emperor's virtue and his harmonious relationship with Tian, or heaven. A single day's miscalculation could throw off the entire schedule of agricultural planting and sacred rituals, a clear sign that the Son of Heaven was failing in his duties. Their second role was deeply political and prophetic. These same astronomers were expected to interpret any unusual celestial event as a direct communication from heaven regarding the emperor's performance. A solar eclipse was not just the moon passing before the sun, it was a catastrophic omen. The ancient Chinese believed a celestial dragon was devouring the sun, a direct reprimand from heaven that the emperor had strayed from the path of virtue and lost its favor. The appearance of a guest star, what we now call a nova or supernova, was an even more urgent memorandum. Its sudden, brilliant light in a fixed constellation signaled the birth of a new power or the death of an old one, a direct challenge to the ruling dynasty's legitimacy. The consequences of these celestial reports were immediate and severe. Upon witnessing an eclipse, the Imperial Astronomical Bureau would issue a swift warning to the throne. The emperor was expected to respond not with defiance but with profound public humility. He would don plain robes, abstain from rich foods, and lead the entire court in ceremonies of repentance. He might even issue a formal edict acknowledging his failures and promising to rule with greater wisdom and compassion. In extreme cases, these celestial warnings could trigger sweeping policy reversals, the dismissal of corrupt ministers, or even tax relief for the people, all in a desperate bid to regain heaven's lost mandate. If the omens persisted and the emperor did not correct his ways, the message was clear. The mandate of heaven had been irrevocably withdrawn. This provided the philosophical justification for rebellion. A successful uprising against a disgraced emperor was seen not as treason, but as the will of heaven itself, a necessary act to restore cosmic balance. In this way, the silent, predictable movements of the stars and the shocking, unpredictable flares of guest stars were not abstract scientific phenomena. They were the very gears of statecraft, their interpretation a matter of life and death for dynasties, proving that in ancient China, the sky held the ultimate power of political veto. The Cumulipo begins not with light but with a profound and generative darkness. This Hawaiian creation chant is a vast genealogical epic, tracing the lineage of the universe from the very first stirrings of life in the primeval deep. It unfolds over 2,000 lines, a sacred narrative where the cosmos itself is the original ancestor. The chant describes a long cosmic night, a period of potent potential where the world is conceived. From this darkness, life emerges in a precise, sequential order, beginning with the simplest marine creatures, the coral and the sea urchin, and gradually evolving into more complex forms, then into the gods, and finally into the first humans and the high chiefs, the alii. This is not a story of creation from nothing, but a story of birth and kinship, linking a chief directly to a sea cucumber and beyond that to the starry expanse above. The chant is a breathtakingly intricate family tree that encompasses the entire natural and celestial world, asserting that all things, from the lowliest creature to the most brilliant star, are related. Celestial knowledge is woven directly into this genealogy. The Cumulipo names specific stars and constellations, not as distant lights, but as ancestors and waypoints in this cosmic lineage. The star cluster known as Macaulay, our Pleiades, is identified as a progenitor. The rising of the star Hoculea Arcturus is given a place of honor, its position in the sky acting as a celestial signpost for the family's history. These were not just pretty names, they were vital coordinates in the identity of the alii. By memorizing and reciting the Cumulipo, a chief was not merely telling a story, he was reciting his literal pedigree, proving his bloodline stretched back through generations of humans and gods to the very origins of the cosmos. His authority to rule was therefore not a political appointment but a divine inheritance. He was a walking, breathing piece of the universe, a descendant of the stars and the forces of creation. This chant was the ultimate validation of power, a sacred text that transformed a leader into a living embodiment of the Hawaiian universe itself. The geometry of the Vedic fire altar was a sacred act of creation. Each brick laid in the construction of an Agni was far more than a clay block, it was a deliberate piece of a cosmic puzzle. The priests were not merely builders, they were architects of the universe on a miniature scale, and their blueprints were encoded within the Vedas themselves. The precise number of bricks, their arrangement in specific layers, and the overall shape of the altar were all dictated by mathematical formulas that mirrored the great cycles of the sky. An altar might be built with 360 bricks, one for each day of the solar year, or its 5 layers might represent the 5 visible planets moving through their celestial spheres. Every measurement was a deliberate echo of a cosmic truth, a way of harnessing the eternal rhythm of Rita and bringing it down to earth. Guiding this entire process were the sutras, the sacred threads. These cords were not just tools for measurement, they were conceptual lifelines connecting the earthly realm to the heavens. Before a single brick was placed, the priests would stretch the sutras across the building site, aligning them precisely with the cardinal directions east, west, north, and south. This act anchored the altar to the fundamental order of the world, but the alignment went deeper still. The main axis of the altar, defined by the sutras, was often oriented to the path of the sun or the pole star, ensuring that the entire structure was a physical extension of the celestial pathways above. The fire that would later burn upon this geometrically perfect platform was therefore not just a terrestrial flame. It was a point of fusion, a place where the human world and the cosmic order met. The ritual of building the altar was as important as the sacrifice performed upon it. The careful, mantra-chanting placement of each brick was a microcosmic performance of the god's own creative act. By reconstructing the universe in miniature according to its divine mathematical and astronomical principles, the Vedic people believed they were actively participating in its maintenance. They were strengthening the fabric of Rita, ensuring the sun would continue its path, the seasons would turn, and the cosmos would not fall back into chaos. In this profound practice, worship was not a request, it was a responsibility, a daily renewal of the universe through sacred geometry. Deep in the Bandiagara cliffs, a 60-year silence is about to be broken. This is the Sigwi, the most profound ceremony in the Dogon world, a festival so immense it defines generations. The timing is everything, for the 60-year cycle is not an arbitrary number plucked from tradition. It mirrors the precise orbital period of the twin stars in the Sirius system, the brilliant Sirius A and its invisible, dense companion, Sirius B, which the Dogon call Po Tolo. When these celestial siblings complete their long dance around one another, the people on Earth below respond with a ritual that lasts for months, commemorating the death of the first ancestor and the moment speech was gifted to humanity. This is more than a celebration, it is a reenactment of cosmic history, a way of resetting the spiritual clock of their civilization. The heart of the Sigwi is the creation and use of the Great Mask, a serpentine mask of staggering size, often measuring over 10 meters long. Its construction is a sacred act in itself, a process that embodies their entire worldview. Carved from a single piece of wood, the mask represents the great arc that brought the Nommo, the amphibious teachers, from the Sirius system to Earth. The mask is not built quickly. Its creation is a slow, deliberate ritual that involves the entire male community of a specific age grade, the men who were initiated during the previous Sigwi 60 years prior. As they carve, they are not just shaping wood, they are retracing the path of the stars and the journey of their celestial ancestors. The mask is kept hidden in a secret cave, a place of immense spiritual power, until the moment of its dramatic reveal. When the festival reaches its peak, the great mask is brought out. It is not worn on a single face, but is carried horizontally by a line of dancers who move in a sinuous, undulating motion, their bodies becoming one with the serpentine form. They move through the villages in a long, solemn procession, their steps tracing the celestial paths their ancestors once traveled. The dance is a complex language of its own, each step and turn encoding their astronomical knowledge and their social laws. Other dancers wear different masks, each representing a different aspect of their cosmology, from antelopes to hyenas, each a character in the great story of creation and revelation. For the Dogon, the gift of speech was not a sudden invention, but a divine revelation tied directly to this cosmic event. The rituals of the Sigwi are meant to reconnect them to that primordial moment, to tap into the original source of language and knowledge. The elaborate, months-long performance reinforces their complex social structure, as each clan and age grade has a specific, non-negotiable role to play. The elders who direct the ceremony are the living repositories of this celestial knowledge, and the younger initiates are the ones who will carry it forward, ensuring that the story survives for another 60-year cycle. In this way, the Sigwi festival is the ultimate expression of their identity. It is where astronomy becomes ritual, where social order becomes dance, and where the silent, 60-year orbit of a distant star finds its voice in the chants and footsteps of a people forever watching the sky. Their entire world was a stage for this celestial feud. When a summer storm boiled on the horizon, the Slavs did not see random weather, they witnessed Perun, the Sky Father, riding out to war. His enemy was Veles, the serpentine god who ruled the wet, dark places below. Veles was a trickster, a shapeshifter who constantly challenged the celestial order, often by stealing Perun's divine cattle, which were the luminous, rain-filled clouds themselves. The lightning that cracked across the sky was not an electrical discharge. It was Perun's flaming axe hurled down from the heavens, striking at the thief hiding in an oak tree or a deep river gorge. The immediate, earth-shaking boom of thunder was the sound of their collision, the impact of a celestial weapon meeting a chthonic shield. This was not a battle of good versus evil, but a necessary, cyclical conflict between two primal and equally powerful forces. Perun represented the sky, law, and the structured world of the community. Veals embodied the earth, water, chaos, and the untamed wilds beyond the village fence. One could not exist without the other. The drama of the storm was the cosmos recalibrating itself. The furious battle in the sky always ended the same way, with a truce. The rain that followed the thunder and lightning was that peace treaty, a life-giving agreement between the two gods. It was the celestial and the chthonic forces merging, their conflict resolved into a blessing that soaked the soil. This rain, born of divine struggle, was what made the crops grow, what filled the wells, and what ensured the community's survival. The Slavs understood that the world functioned only through this delicate, explosive balance. The clear, ordered sky of Perun alone would bring drought and starvation. The wet, chaotic domain of Veals alone would bring floods and decay. It was the constant tension between them, played out in the theater of the heavens, that created the fertile middle ground where life could truly flourish. A songline is not just a path on the ground, it is a melody of memory that weaves across the landscape and directly into the stars. An Aboriginal elder walking a songline is not merely traveling from one waterhole to the next, he is singing the world into being with every step, following a celestial score written in the night sky. Each verse in the epic song corresponds to a specific landmark, a rock formation, a twist in a dry riverbed, and simultaneously to a star or a constellation that moves overhead. The rhythm of the walk matches the rhythm of the chant, and the rising of a particular star at a certain point in the journey confirms you are on the correct path. To navigate 1,000 miles of featureless desert, you did not need a map drawn on bark, you needed to know the song. The sequence of the verses was paramount, a precise oral map where getting a single word out of order could mean losing your way entirely. The sky was the ultimate guide and the constant companion. As you sang your way through the verses describing the gum trees and the ant hills, you would look up to see the ancestral emu, a dark shape in the Milky Way, climbing higher in the heavens, its position confirming the next stage of your journey. This was a system where geography and astronomy were fused into a single, living entity. The story of the Seven Sisters, for instance, is not confined to the star cluster we call the Pleiades. It is also the story of their flight across the Earth, with each hill and water source they passed marked by a corresponding star in their celestial trail. To sing the song of the Seven Sisters is to trace their path across the continent while watching their luminous forms move across the dome of night. This knowledge was sacred lore, a religious text, and a survival manual all rolled into one. It meant that the entire continent was a vast, interconnected library of song, and the sky was its illuminated manuscript. Every star was a footnote, every constellation a chapter heading in the great epic of the dreaming. How many other maps have been sung into existence, where to know a place is to know its story in the stars? The giant Tolos was not a monster of flesh and blood, but a being of polished bronze, a living automaton who marched his fiery patrol around the island of Crete 3 times each day. His myth reads like ancient science fiction, yet it may hold a key to understanding how the Minoans saw the sun itself in motion. His triple circuit could be a perfect allegory for the sun's journey, marking its position at dawn, noon, and dusk as it guarded the island from the sea, just as Tolos guarded its shores from invaders. The substance that animated him was not blood, but ichor, the ethereal fluid of the gods, a brilliant metaphor for the life-giving power of sunlight that makes the world live and breathe. His legendary weakness, a single bronze nail or plug in his ankle that sealed the ichor within, completes the celestial story. This single point of failure could symbolize the moment of sunset, when the sun's vital energy seems to drain from the world, the final, vulnerable point in its daily cycle before it plunges beneath the horizon. This interpretation weaves their mythology directly into their solar observations, suggesting the bull-leaping frescoes and peak sanctuaries were part of a larger cosmic narrative. The Minoans may have encoded the drama of the heavens into the story of a bronze giant, turning the sun's dependable arc into a tale of divine power and fragile, daily renewal. That snarling, downturned mouth is one of the most haunting images from the ancient Americas. Across countless Olmec sculptures, from colossal heads to delicate celts, we see the same powerful hybrid, a human infant's face contorted with the features of a jaguar. This is the word jaguar, a being of profound and terrifying power. It was not a monster of folklore, but a sacred state of being, a shamanistic transformation that lay at the very heart of Olmec rule. In the dense, shadow-filled jungle, the jaguar was the ultimate sovereign, a creature of immense strength that moved with equal authority through the trees, on the land, and even through water. It was the master of the night, a time when the sun, the ruler of the day, had descended into the underworld. By taking on the jaguar's essence, an Olmec ruler was not merely putting on a mask, he was undergoing a spiritual metamorphosis. He was shedding his human form to become a creature that could navigate all three layers of the cosmos: the earth, the star-filled sky, and the watery underworld. This transformation was the ultimate source of his political authority. How could a mere man command the loyalty of thousands because he was no longer just a man? In his word jaguar state, he could descend into the darkness to commune with powerful ancestral spirits, or ascend to the heavens to decipher the will of the celestial gods. He could learn the future from the stars and return with the wisdom needed to ensure rain for the crops and victory in battle. The ruler became the living conduit, the access point where the human world connected directly to the cosmic forces of creation and destruction. His ability to cross these boundaries, witnessed by his people through powerful public rituals, proved his divine right to lead. His power was not written in laws but carved in stone, a permanent reminder that the true king was one who could walk with the jaguar in the realm of the stars. Carved into the desert varnish of a sandstone boulder in Arizona, the Prophecy Rock petroglyph is a silent, stark map of cosmic destiny. For the Hopi people, this is not ancient graffiti, but a profound spiritual guide known as the Hopi Prophecy, a chronicle of past worlds and a warning for the future. The entire panel is dominated by a large circular symbol, a sun sign representing the creator, Teoa. From this central source of life and divine law, two parallel lines extend, tracing the path of humanity through time. These lines are the journey of life itself, and the figures etched along them are the different choices people can make. On one side, a figure walks with a humble, curved back, its path simple and direct, symbolizing a life lived in harmony with the natural and spiritual laws. On the other side, a figure stands upright and proud, its path branching into a complex, chaotic maze, representing a life of ego, materialism, and separation from the Creator's way. This is the core of the prophecy, a clear choice between two roads, one of humility and balance, the other of arrogance and discord. The petroglyph is also a history of emergence. The Hopi believe we are currently living in the fourth world. The lower section of the rock art shows three previous worlds, each one destroyed because humanity fell out of balance, succumbing to the temptations symbolized by the maze-like path. The figures and symbols along the main path are not just people, they are specific prophecies foretelling the arrival of different races, the coming of the white man, and the technological age we now inhabit. The final symbols are the most urgent, depicting a point of great purification, a time of reckoning where humanity's collective choices will determine the fate of this world. This rock art is their eternal calendar and compass. It teaches that our personal journey is inextricably linked to the great cosmic cycles, that the sun does not merely give light but also judges our actions. To live in harmony with the celestial order means to walk the straight path, to respect the earth, and to maintain the sacred bond between the people, the land, and the sky above. The Prophecy Rock is a permanent reminder that the stars are not just watching, they are waiting to see which path we will choose. A jaguar man in Mesoamerica and a one-eyed god in Scandinavia both climb a tree that holds up the stars. The sheer distance between these cultures makes their shared images feel impossible, yet these cosmic blueprints repeat across the globe with an eerie consistency. The most powerful of these archetypes is the world tree or axis mundi. For the Norse, it was Yggdrasil, the great ash. For the Maya, it was the Waka-chan, the raised-up sky, often depicted as a great ceiba tree with its roots in the underworld and its branches in the heavens. In Siberia, shamanic traditions describe a central pole that allows the spiritual traveler to ascend to the celestial realms. This was not a coincidence of imagination, but a fundamental human need to find a center, a central pillar that gave structure to the cosmos and offered a pathway between the human world and the divine. Another universal figure is the celestial hunter, forever chasing his prey across the starry expanse. We know him as Orion. To the Greeks, he was a giant pursuing the Pleiades. To the Lakota Sioux, he was a hand constellation chasing the buffalo. In the Aboriginal Australian sky, the three stars of Orion's belt are three young men sitting in a canoe pursuing the Seven Sisters. Why does this same story of a hunter and the pursued appear on every continent? Perhaps it reflects our own ancient past, a time when all of humanity lived by the hunt, and the success of the chase mirrored in the sky meant the difference between survival and starvation. Then there are the divine twins, a pair of brothers often linked to the sun and moon or the morning and evening stars. The Maya had the hero twins Hunahpu and Xbalanque, who outwitted the lords of the underworld. In Vedic India, the Ashvins were twin horsemen who brought the dawn. Roman myth featured Romulus and Remus, suckled by a she-wolf who founded a city. These twin figures often represent duality and balance, the two halves of a single whole, a way of explaining the complementary forces that govern the world. Even the cataclysmic Great Flood, a story found in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Bible, and Maya lore, is frequently tied to a celestial trigger, a realignment of the stars or the wrath of the gods written in the heavens. The patterns extend to the sun and moon themselves. Why is the sun almost universally male, a father, a king, or a warrior like Ra in Tai and Surya? His light is direct, powerful, and life-giving, traits often culturally coded as masculine. The moon, in contrast, is overwhelmingly female, a goddess like Ixchel, Chang, or Luna. Her light is reflective, gentle, and cyclical, governing the tides and the menstrual cycle, connecting her to the deeply feminine mysteries of birth, intuition, and the rhythm of time. And what of the Pleiades? This tiny, misty cluster is a calendar marker for cultures as diverse as the Aboriginal Australians, the ancient Greeks, the Maori of New Zealand, and the Dakota of North America. Its heliacal rising, its first appearance before the sunrise, consistently signals the start of a new season, a time to plant or a time to move. So what does this all mean? Do these echoes point to a single, forgotten source, a time when our ancestors shared one language and one set of stories that scattered across the world with migrating tribes? Or is this a testament to the structure of the human mind itself, a collective unconscious that instinctively weaves the same archetypes from the raw material of the stars? Or is the simplest answer the most profound? Every human, everywhere, has looked up at the same brilliant points of light, the same wandering planets, and the same vast, arching Milky Way. Faced with that overwhelming mystery, is it any wonder that we all saw the same hunters, the same trees, and the same gods, reaching for the same truth written in the only universal book we all share? From the doggone silent watch for Sirius to the Inca stone hitching post for the sun, this journey across 35 ancient worlds reveals a single, stunning truth. The sky was humanity's first and greatest shared experience, a universal canvas upon which we painted our deepest fears and highest aspirations. It was our original temple, its vast dome inspiring awe and the first notions of the divine. It was our first clock, its predictable cycles giving rhythm to planting, harvest, and sacred ceremony. and it was our first storybook, its constellations and wandering lights providing the narratives that explained creation, morality, and our own fragile existence. This celestial reverence was the engine of civilization itself, driving the construction of pyramids and ziggurats, inspiring the precise mathematics of calendars, and justifying the divine right of kings. It shaped our earliest sciences and our most enduring art, forging a bond between the human spirit and the cosmos that was as practical as it was profound. Yet, in our modern world of electric light and digital screens, that intimate bond has been severed. We have traded the star-dusted tapestry of the Milky Way for the dim glow of streetlights, losing not just the view but the visceral connection to that grander story. The ancient voices that once spoke with the stars have faded to a whisper, but the sky remains, its mysteries still waiting just beyond the glare. Perhaps by making the effort to look up, to find a patch of true darkness and gaze into that infinite depth, we can begin to recover a fragment of that lost wonder. We might just remember that we are not separate from the universe, but a conscious part of it, heirs to a celestial legacy written in the light of 35 forgotten suns. Which of these ancient sky watchers spoke to you the most? Was it the Polynesian wayfinders, the Maya timekeepers, or the philosophical Greeks? Share the civilization that captured your imagination in the comments below, and subscribe to join us on our next journey into the world's greatest historical mystery.